Hello and welcome. Welcome to today's program, and we thank you for joining us. I am C. Virginia Fields, former president of the Borough of Manhattan, and now president CEO of the National Black Leadership Commission on Health, an organization with a mission that is to eliminate health disparities and promote health equity among the Black African American communities. And we achieve this mission through advocacy, policy, and action. As a national organization, we have affiliates across 12 cities and over 174 partners nationwide. So we are continuing the work, and I'm so happy that you are joining us. And let me say on today, we are going to be talking about reimagining Thanksgiving. With so much loss, pain, unemployment, uncertainties, as we continue in the environment of this pandemic, COVID-19. We want to make sure that we have an opportunity to talk about ways still that we can enjoy Thanksgiving with family, friends, while at the same time being mindful of the midst of this virus. So today, reimagining Thanksgiving is going to give us some opportunities, some tips from two well-known leaders, restaurateurs, iconic people who are well involved and know exactly some of the things that we should be considering. Today, we have Melba Wilson, who was born, bred, and buttered in Harlem. Today, she proudly represents her New York neighborhood as one of the most successful African-American women in the restaurant and catering businesses. Her style, poise, and love for entertaining have made Melba's restaurant a New York landmark. We also have Tren'ness Woods-Black, the granddaughter of the soul food icon Sylvia Woods, founder of Sylvia Restaurant and Food Products, where Tren'ness serves as the Vice President of Communications and Strategic Partnerships. Vice President of Communication is a sought after, as Vice President of Communication, I should say. She is a sought after advisor, personality, and speaker in the culinary, lifestyle, philanthropic, and business corridors. Thanks to both of you women for joining me today. And I'm happy to say, I know both of them. They're my friends. I eat at their restaurant, and I'm just excited to have both of them. Before we get into the discussion about how we perhaps can reimagine Thanksgiving, recognizing that people will not be gathering with family and friends as we normally do during this very special time. Starting with you, Melba, could you please just take about 2 minutes and tell us a little about you, how you got into the business, what keeps you into the business, or anything else you can add in that 2-minute segment. Then we will go to Tren'ness. Melba.
Hi, I'm Melba Wilson, and as the one and only Honorable C. Virginia Fields did say, I was born, bred, and buttered right here in the village of Harlem. I actually got my start at Sylvia's restaurant, so I'm always happy whenever my cousin Tren'ness and I are able to share the podium and talk about things that we love. And I don't think there's any better holiday for me other than Thanksgiving. this Thanksgiving, as we all know, is a very different one for so many of us. Sadly, we will not be able to share this Thanksgiving because so many of us have lost family members and friends. However, we today are in the land of the living. So let us take an opportunity to give thanks for that, but also to save a seat at the table and definitely a place in our hearts for those that will not be here physically, but that will definitely be here in spirit.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Tren'ness?
Yes, Melba, you hit it right on the heart, I should say, because hands down, Thanksgiving is my family's favorite holiday. Both of my grandmothers, my grandma Sylvia, who is watching diligently from heaven, and my grandmother, my maternal grandmother in Queens. You know, Thanksgiving is important, especially in our culture, because food is so important and family is so important. So this year, with COVID and everything that's happening, and all of the losses that we have shared, it's going to look different. But the one thing that I know is going to be really, really present is gratitude. Gratitude is one thing that I feel has been more birthed and exercised in this moment. So for this Thanksgiving, like no other Thanksgiving for sure in my lifetime, I'm looking forward to just streaming it back in, making it more intimate, and just being grateful for being in the land of the living, like you mentioned.
And I would agree with the statements made by both of you. And to just share again, my Thanksgiving was my mother's favorite holiday. She passed from her earthly life to eternal life in 1992. And I remember the last Thanksgiving that we shared together. She was actually here at my house in New York where the family gathered. And we had the tradition of moving from one sister or brother's house each year. And so that was my year. And I can remember when she left the Sunday after Thanksgiving, that was the last time that I actually saw her because she passed January of that following year. But she had started the tradition in our family too of the gathering, and we still continue it. That's why this Thanksgiving is so different because my home is usually the place now where everyone would come from Alabama, from Maryland, and of course they won't be coming this year. With that said, thank you all so much for sharing those words, and they were very encouraging and inspiring. So here we are. What do we do? What are some of the recommendations or thoughts you may have about how we can still enjoy Thanksgiving even in the midst of this pandemic and these challenging times we're in? Melba, let's start with you.
Well, one of the things that I've noticed and that we've all noticed is how many things have we done virtually? Never would have thought this computer would have been that useful to me. Prior to COVID, I used it mainly to check my emails and to get back to people. But now I have become a connoisseur of Zoom. Yes, Zoom. I do so many things that I never thought I could do virtually. So one of the things that I'm doing with family members and friends is I am doing a cooking demo virtually. So if you cannot have everyone over, which the CDC is asking us to only keep our immediate family members with us on Thanksgiving, people that live in the same household with you, what about cooking Thanksgiving together virtually? How much fun is that? That's one of the things that I'm doing with my family and friends, going through recipes that they've each emailed me or texted me or called me and asked me to make. And I'm doing a cooking demo. Hey, let's keep it real. In the beginning, I thought this virtual thing, there was no way that this was going to happen. But it's sort of become like a second nature to us all. So that's one of the things that you can definitely do. If you are having your immediate family over, wash your hands. Wash your hands. Wash your hands. Also, since it's Thanksgiving, don't just wear any old mask. Put on that special mask, one that you love, and feel free to dress up at home. You may see your family members every day, but Thanksgiving is a special day. It's a day to give thanks, and as Tren'ness said, gratitude. And so dress up at home. Make it that much more special to you. What about also making sure that only one person serves? This way you don't have everyone, we normally like to serve family style. And this way, you take the plate and you pass it down. However, because of COVID, one of the things that we can do to stay safe is have a designated person serving. There's so many other tips, and I'm sure Tren'ness is going to share some things that she recommends as well. But to get you started, those are just some ideas and things that I think you can do to stay safer during this Thanksgiving season.
Very exciting. Before you go, Tren'ness, I just have one question for Melba, and that is that just for the family, or can others tune in?
Well, you are family to us. You already know that. So,
okay.
Family.
Yes, Melba, I was taking some of those notes. I love a designated server. So like more of a butler style service. I love that. So for Thanksgiving, one of the things, again, this holiday, Thanksgiving is like the holiday where, you have my Aunt Aretha is always going to make the best banana pudding. My cousin Tamika is going to throw down on her pound cake, and everyone really showcases their talents. So definitely, Melba, I'm going to be taking some of those pre-cooking tips and do some recipe recording. One of the things that we're doing at the restaurant, normally we have a large Thanksgiving package that we send out. So this year we made our package smaller and a bit easier for those who don't have family to be with them. One of the things that I'm personally going to do is I'm going to, after next week, I do a turkey drive. Sylvia's, we have a turkey drive on Wednesday. We'll be giving out turkeys. And when that's over, I'm going to get my COVID test, and then I'm going to quarantine. I'm going to self-isolate because I desperately want to be able to spend Thanksgiving with my grandmother in Queens. And what we're going to do this year, we're going to make sure that we have photos and stories of our loved ones. I'm big into decorating the table for Thanksgiving and for any holiday. Any chance I get to do a tablescape, I'm just in love. So I'm going to make sure that I'll have pictures of my mother, who transitioned back in 2014. She was the hostess with the mostest, and we'll be sharing stories, and I'm going to be cooking one of her recipes that she loved to make, which was a lamb with mint jelly. So we're going to do that. But just to be safe, I was like, there's no way I'm not going to be able to stay away from my grandmother. And so that's the easiest thing to do. And I tell people all the time, in your community, there's tons and tons of COVID stations that you can go get tested. So if you're uptown in Harlem, there's one on 118th Street. You get your test results the next day. Same for Harlem Hospital. If you live in Harlem, go to Harlem Hospital and you can get your results the next day. But it's really, really, really important that once you get your results, you have to stay inside. You have to be mindful of those that you have around you. So for Thanksgiving this year, we just want to be spreading love and definitely not COVID.
That is so much on target. So let me ask, will both of your restaurants be open on Thanksgiving?
Yes, Melba's will be. Yes, Melba's will be open right now at 25% capacity. And we're praying that the weather is nice. If the weather is nice, and who knows, right now in New York, it's almost 60 degrees today. And as we all know, this weekend it was in the 70s. So if the weather is nice, we will also open outdoors. And that's another thing. if the weather is nice, feel free to bring your Thanksgiving dinner outdoors. How wonderful is that to be able to serve turkey and all of the trimmings outdoors? And the forefront of my table, and I know it's going to be on Tren'ness's table as well. You know, you normally see the greens, the yams, potato, the ham. We're also going to have hand sanitizers. So let's remember individual hand sanitizers. Just keep that on your table as well, and one for all of your guests.
And what about ingredients, healthy cooking? You know I grew up when my mother would cook collard greens. It was always with the ham hock, and you know. So how are we transitioning more into ingredients that really borders on healthy eating, and especially now since more people will be cooking at home, and what tips or advice might either of you have for them, for us?
Well, I'm going to tell you, of course, we like the ham hocks and the collard greens. However, you can make them taste just as good by using your spices. And my grandmother was very, very apprehensive, my maternal grandmother, about me cooking the collard greens without any meat. She was just like, they're just not going to taste right. And I had the nerve to even do them a bit al dente. She ended up loving them. So you can chop up your collard greens, chop them up finely, put them in a pan with some minced garlic, some olive oil, some fresh red pepper, doing a little splash of some vinegar. And I'm telling you, that's some good eating, and it's healthier for you. So there's lots of ways that you can make your traditional Thanksgiving over healthy. For the most part, when I think about Thanksgiving and what we serve, it was the original farm to table. Thanksgiving is the only day that when you come to Sylvia's, you will find turnips in your collard greens. And trust me, people are like so excited just to have that extra nod to nostalgia and to soul food by adding in those turnips into the collard greens. You have your beautiful roasted turkey, that's a lean meat. You know, the flavor in a turkey is all about how you massage that baby, get that seasoning in there, let it sit in some brine, and that is a really good way. And then portion control. Portion control. Know that you can always go back for seconds. So just take a little, just make a little spot for everything on your plate, you know, and try to stay within here. I mean, I have a big palm, but palm size for most, you don't want to go outside of that. So making sure you watch what you eat, do everything in moderation. But oh my God, the sweet potatoes, the roasted sweet potatoes, you don't need a lot of sugar for your yams. You can make them over traditionally. I make yams all the time in the house. I'll slice them up, or I will bake. You can bake the yams, and you can chop up some nuts and put on top. That's some good eating. A little cinnamon and some parchment.
Hungry sitting up here, and especially when we talked about massaging that turkey. And I'm like, oh, I'm starving.
I have a tradition of spanking the turkey every year. I spank it before my grandmother seasons it. Always, from the time I was very small, and I just think it helps. It helps absorb the love.
These are all such exciting tips, but before we move further, let me ask you about how is business going right now during this climate? And I know, as you said, you can only have 25% indoors, and with the weather changing now, outdoors is very unpredictable, and especially when we're looking at possible, the weather of snow. So tell us a little how business is going and what changes you have had to consider and are already making post-pandemic, because I am very prayerful we're going to come out of this.
Well, as the president of the New York City Hospitality Alliance, And in this city where we have over 26,000 restaurants that employ over 300,000 people, I can tell you that this has been a very, very tough time for our industry and for, our employees, which are really our restaurant family. The space that I'm sitting in now is a space that I was supposed to open in March. And COVID, as we all know, hit us in March. So it's an empty location that's here, that's waiting to have patrons from our community come in, that's waiting to have staff who live in our community to give them jobs. And because of COVID, we were unable, I was unable to open here. So this pandemic has hit our industry unlike no other. What other industry do you have where someone can start working at the age of 14? Or someone like me can start out as a cashier and end up owning 3 businesses and also being the president of the Hospitality Alliance? That doesn't happen in many businesses, but it does happen in the restaurant industry. Over 40% of our businesses are closed, which means that hundreds of thousands of people are without jobs. They're unable to feed their family. So this Thanksgiving, we are grateful for life. However, our main concern is for our restaurant family, those who we need to help. In the food and beverage industry, our job is to service and to take care of others. However, this is a time where we need our neighborhood, our community, our government to step up, to step in and take care of us. In this country, the restaurant industry is the second largest private employer. Okay, we're the second largest in this country. And that needs to be recognized. And we need the federal government to step in and step up.
And hopefully with this new election that we know who the winner is, that there is going to be a different response to the needs of communities and especially small businesses, starting with our health. Vaccine, we know that is needed, and hopefully, there will continue to be movement there as we are already seeing. So, Tren'ness, anything you want to add in terms of changes and considerations that are being made following where we are and what we need to do?
Well, I'm happy to say that I also sit on the board that Melba does a wonderful job as our president. And to see the numbers of restaurant closing permanently, knowing that they have their entire life savings, their mortgages, everything that they own poured into this business that is gone is just heartbreaking. We're the restaurants are the ones that take care of our communities. We're the ones that feed the little leagues. We're the ones that support our youth organizations, our clergy, our educators, the PTA meetings. We're the ones that they call when they need something. And literally, I was heartbroken along with my family and along with the rest of the industry when we had to lay off our staff family. That was so hard. The hardest thing that we've had to do as we're a year and a half away from 60. And to know that these jobs for a lot of people are not coming back. They're not coming back. An industry that Melba said you can start out at the age of 14, no college education. English doesn't have to be your first language, and you can take care of your family, or you can grow to even be a business owner, like Melba mentioned, and have 3 businesses. So what we really need our community to know is that you may see a couple of folks sitting at our sidewalk cafes and say, oh, you guys are pretty busy. But that's just a small piece of what we're missing. And it's not that we're missing being open fully for ourselves. we're missing being open, because I know what our staff family responsibilities are. A lot of them have multi-generational households, and they may be the youngest one in the family, but they're the only one that can speak the language and that's able to possibly go out and get a job. There's a lot of immigrants that work in our industry, and they are their family's sole responsibility in different countries. And even here, when the pandemic started, like most of the industry, who was first to feed the people? The restaurants.
Yeah.
And what I noticed with our pantry is that in the beginning, it was people that were passing by that maybe lived on the streets. My heart was broken when I started to see our patrons, our guests that used to have the means to come in and purchase a meal from Sylvia's, now needing us to give them assistance with groceries and food. So our community, especially the Black community, which makes up 22% of New York City, and prior to COVID, we only own 2% of the businesses. So everything that you know and everything that you hear is pointing to the disparities that we already face, making COVID an obstacle that a lot of us cannot climb.
Right.
So I'm very fearful for what the small business community, especially the Black small business community, is going to look like when the smoke clears.
Thank you so very much. And unfortunately, we're almost at the end of our time, but both of you have given such valuable information. First, about how we can enjoy Thanksgiving virtually with our families, but also practicing social distance and following the health protocols. And you've also given us some very important information to think about with respect to the impact on our neighborhoods and on the restaurant business. And for this, ladies and friends, I want to thank you, Melba Wilson of Melville's Restaurant and Tren'ness Woods-Black of Sylvia's Restaurant. And I thank both of you, and will say again to our viewing audience that the Manhattan Neighborhood Network brings you these programs so that you can be better informed about important topics that impact your health and your well-being. And you've heard a lot today, and we wish you all a very happy, but most important, grateful and thankful Thanksgiving. Thank you, and thank you for joining us for this important program.